Sarah Kelsey, welcome to the Stag. I'd like to start off by saying absolutely congratulations because you put up a post the other day that you're 130,000 downloads deep after 107 episodes. That's freaking awesome. I'm still trying to knock on the door of the 100,000. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on your pod. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I'm super excited to finally hit that 100,000 mark and now 130,000 after like a couple of months. So it's very exciting. And yeah, I appreciate it.
No, awesome. So what do you think the secret is? Because I found you on everyone's love to hate platform TikTok. And
My favorite platform ever.
for real or no?
Seriously, I love it. And, everyone is a hater of TikTok. And I'm like, you either secretly love it and you're just trying to tell everyone that you hate it, or you don't actually use it that much
Yeah,
because you will understand if you use it a lot just how much value you can really get out of it. I'm such a TikTok advocate, honestly.
nice. Do you follow Jordan Rivers?
Nah, I don't actually, but I have seen this TikTok.
Yeah, he stirs the pot a little bit. Yeah, um, he was bringing up the comment that it's it was today because he got banned again. That it's a platform designed for children that has adults talking about creepy adult things on there. And I was like, oh, you're probably a little bit right there, Jordan.
Honestly, I feel like it depends what side of TikTok you get on because you can curate your feed right to be so many different like niches of your interests that
Yeah,
like one side of my TikTok will be, all about money, and then the other side of it will be baking videos, and the other side of it will be, random ass videos. I do find the people who are on there so interesting though. Like I get the funniest, I wouldn't even call them hate comments, but just like random digs about random things that don't even make sense on my TikTok. And oh, it's just so funny. And they're always like older guys, like never like kids or something like that commenting. It's so funny.
you shared and thank goodness for your followers. They attacked the argument the other day. Someone saying you don't know anything, you should just invest in crypto. I love that.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like the names sort of just cracked me out. Like the one of the people commenting was called the Honorable Lord, and the other
Yeah,
person was you what bitch, and they were just like replying like calling the person out. And that always happens in my comments. Like people would just have their own argument,
yeah.
and I'm like, I was going to reply, but I'll just let you have your own conversation in the comments.
Yeah, nice. So, in my last episode, I had Akash Kumar on. I think you've spoken to him a
Yeah,
wee way
he's
back,
awesome.
and we were like trying to get to the bottom of how do you grow your reach and what do you need to do. What do you think has been the secret of your? I'm going to call it success, mate. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think for me, a massive thing that I focused on when I first started and now is just consistency. Like, I've
Mm.
uploaded an episode every week for almost the last 2 years now, and I've never missed a week. I upload consistently every week on Instagram as well, and I hardly take any breaks. And to some people, that's probably not the healthiest of things, and it really does depend on your own personal relationship with social media. And there's nothing wrong with not doing that, but I think for me, like consistency, I knew was just going to be such an important part of my growth and to prove to myself that I actually loved and enjoyed what I do. Like for me, there'll be times where I get caught up in the numbers and it
Mm.
becomes motivating and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I always feel so inspired by the One Up Project community, I suppose, and the things that people tell me on there because it's just so insane to see the kind of, I guess, impact you can have on other people, no matter how big or small your reach is. And so those things always keep me coming back. And I think that's the reason I stay so consistent. And I always say that I think if you don't have a good reason, and
Mm.
cliche as it is, a good why for why exactly you're doing something, you're just not going to stick to it. You're not going to be consistent, and you're not going to push through where when shit gets tough. Like at the beginning, when I first started the podcast, I had a few people who weren't happy with what I was doing and called it unethical and things like that, which I really took to heart initially. And I think if I had less confidence in what I was doing and less self belief, it probably would have stopped me from going any further, but I just keep going with it. I'm so glad I did, because now I can kind of put those comments into perspective with a lot more experience in the space I'm in, and kind of say, oh, well, some of their points were valid. I'm glad I took on the feedback, but at the end of the day, it's not a huge deal. And you don't really have that kind of context all the time when you're fresher. So it's harder to push past those kind of things initially. But I would say I could go into all sorts of things, and feel free to pick my brain on that if you want to, but definitely consistency would be the number one thing.
Hard out. Just on that negative feedback, like the unethical side of things, like how valuable was it having Luke and Phil to tell you that now what you're doing is a great idea?
I know, it was so awesome. And like, yeah, I don't know if you've heard on one of the podcasts I was on with them, and they I said to them, like, when I was interning for Luke and Phil, I was so nervous to tell them about this idea, and I just was so scared that they were going to think it was stupid. I don't know why, because now knowing them, they would never say that, but I was just so nervous, and I remember bringing it up, and Phil was just like, "Holy shit! Like that's such a good idea," and I was just so stoked at their reaction, and they definitely were huge motivators for me to actually put it into motion, which I'm forever grateful for.
Nice, yeah. And obviously now Luke started his podcast, and I'm going to get him on next, which is going to be bloody cool. You're saying, did I hear? And yeah, I've gone through the majority of your back catalogue, and yeah, now I'm on to listening to Luke's is it Money Talks, keep the change podcast, and yeah, sign up to the email and everything. It was quite hilarious because I got the first email, and the night before my brother had told me about doing your position statement, and I'd done it, and then sure enough, first email was like, do your position statement. I was like, oh shit, I'm like, what a confidence booster.
Yeah, already ahead of the pack. So
Yeah,
good. Yeah, Luke's awesome. He's such an amazing person, and definitely a huge reason for like my growth and consistent development and what I've done.
nice. So you said that you sort of had the idea, you got involved at Next Advisory, and you implemented the idea. What sparked your idea, and then sort of what held you back from actually implementing it?
Yeah, so a classic story I always tell, and this is definitely the reason why I started the podcast, was I was interning at PwC, which is an accounting firm that I ended up working at. And one of the people who I was interning with said, have you set up your Kiwisaver correctly? You can be in a different fund and you can change your rate and all this kind of thing. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I have no idea what you're on about right now. And even I remember he started chatting about investing as well, and I was just so confused. And I sort of realized in that moment that I was I felt like I was so behind. Like, I thought, if everyone knows this, then I truly have no idea what I was doing. And the embarrassing part of it all was I thought I was the most financially literate out of my close group of friends or close circle. I actually thought I knew what I was doing. And so when I heard this, I was like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing. And I'm pissed off that no one told me that. And when I signed up to KiwiSaver, I felt like there was no kind of education around it. But to be fair, I remember getting all these huge documents about KiwiSaver and all this kind of thing when I signed
Mm-hmm.
up for it, actually. Because I only signed up to KiwiSaver like 3 years after I started working, because my dad wasn't a massive fan of it, which now I've converted him the other way. But yeah, so that hindered me as well, and I was just so confused, and I was like, there needs to be a resource that not only teaches people how to understand this stuff, but actually makes it relatable, somewhat entertaining and fun to listen to, because otherwise you just don't want to make any effort towards changing anything. It's just boring, and you can't relate it to yourself now, especially retirement. Like, I'm 23. At that time I was 21. It's like, I don't give a shit about how much money I'm going to have when I'm 65 at this point. Now I do, because I'm educated, but at the time, I really couldn't care less, and I didn't know the importance of caring about that stuff now. So anyway, that led me on to wanting to start the podcast, and then I didn't really implement the idea until 6 months post initially getting the idea. And I started just interviewing a few people through connections I had already, and then actually launched it in January. And I always knew that it wasn't just going to be financial literacy. Like, I really wanted it to be a bit broader than that, and also tie into personal development, personal growth themes as well. Because for me, it's a really holistic thing. Money ties into personal development. If you don't have the confidence to talk about money, you probably also don't have the confidence to go and ask for a pay rise, and all these sorts of things that tie into money. And so I always wanted it to be a combination of the two, and now we've kind of gotten to that point where every other episode is either personal growth or financial literacy, which I'm really stoked about. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I just, as soon as the first episode was released, kept the ball rolling from there to now.
Nice, nice. So it's funny how you like pick up on like what people say. Like when it came to Kiwisaver, I think I might have just been starting to. I think I was working at the movies in about sixth form, and I was like, "Oh, should I do this?" And I think my parents were like, "Yeah, yeah, it saves for your retirement." And I can't remember whether the Homestart grant was in place at that point or not, but it was just like, "Oh yeah, whatever, just sign me up." And then so I just kept, every time you had a new job, like, "Do you want to be in Kiwisaver?" "Yeah, sign me up." I'm in that. Carry on, and then a bit like you were talking about in those early episodes, like choosing your fund. It wasn't until my last year of university. I actually, my older brother's given me some great financial advice over the years, and he said to me, "Make sure you're in growth." And I remember going to the ANZ in Taranaki there in New Plymouth and going in, but I want to change my fund to growth. And sure enough, I was just on the most conservative nothing, and that was short. What was that? That was 2013. So that was when the market was starting to get a head of steam up again, and I just watched this fund that had been sitting away doing nothing just go climb, climb, climb. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's cool." But then, like getting out of uni, it was like, "Geez, what do you do again?" And so I was like, "Right, 8%, and I'll save for this Homestart grant." And I don't know where those bloody ideas came from, but they worked at the time. But then, like you say about investing, it was just like nothing that I even considered. And it was like, oh, out of uni, I went to uni for 7 years. So it was like, out of uni, I've got money, some freedom, buy some stuff, buy a car and all these sort of things. And then, yeah, fast forward 8 years later, and it's like, holy shit, I got a 10K credit card debt, and what am I going to do? So
Yeah.
something you always talk about in your podcast is like, a bit like planting trees. The best day was yesterday, but the next best day is today. I think at 21, finding out about these things, you've got plenty of time on your hand, and you weren't such a beginner because, like I say, even you looking at your dad, like, oh, Kiwisavers was a bad idea, but now he's changed his mind. Like, what was that conversation like?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think it was like a lot of little conversations that kind of led to him thinking, oh yeah, actually maybe I had that wrong. And in his defense, he's owned his own business at a really young age,
Mm.
always looked out for himself, being that kind of independent earner. Sort of always had that classic kind of boomer mindset that you yeah. And as this thing started growing, I have a lot of conversations with my parents about what I'm talking about in financial literacy and that kind of thing, and explained why KiwiSaver is so beneficial, and why it's just so needed for so many different people. And I think he just came round after a while, after being hounded. And yeah, we're quite funny because we're quite similar people, and so often we go head to head on a lot of things. And I think I won that battle. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Um. Something said that I found quite interesting, that you know you were in the situation where your employer, your internship, was talking about signing up to KiwiSaver, and you found a massive knowledge gap, and instead of like many people do, poo-pooing it or running and hiding or just ignoring it, you decided to further educate yourself. Where do you reckon that mindset came from? That when you um, don't know something, instead of being fearful and running away, you decided to dive into it and really explore the possibilities and see it as a chance for growth. Where does that sort of mindset come from?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think at the time of finding out about the KiwiSaver stuff, like for me, it was more fear, like fear of being left behind. And I think that's like a common, relatable story of at least a lot of the people who listen to my podcast, is they have this fear that they're going to be left behind because they don't have all of these things set up. And so then that's your motivation to get started. And then there's kind of the other group of people who don't even want to know, because they know that there's things that they don't know, but it's just such a sea of the unknown that it's so overwhelming to jump into. But I also think I've always been the kind of person that's willing to jump headfirst into things and just hope for the best. And so for me, when it comes to anything, whether it's starting the podcast or starting to learn about money, it was very much just a process of thinking, well, you know, I don't want to be left behind, but also what have I got to lose at this point? Like, I'm obviously not doing very much with my current Kiwisaver or with my money in general. So may as well jump into it now. And I think the more people you talk to as well, like the podcast has been a huge benefit to me for my personal growth. Like meeting all of these people, hearing the perspectives of so many different people has really benefited who I am as a person. And what I love about it is that I can also take everyone else on that journey, because everyone else can hear those conversations as well and grow with me. So for my audience, they should be hopefully picking up the same things that I am and like learning through that process and developing that mindset. So I think like I didn't always have that kind of approach, but as I learn more and as I um, get or I guess grow a deeper thirst for curiosity and for learning, that's when you start to want to know more.
Yeah. So partly because of your influence, I've got the old book Rich Dad Poor Dad behind me.
Oh,
As we were talking about on Instagram, I picked it up from a secondhand bookshop for $10 and read it in 2 days. But one of the philosophies in that is paying yourself first, and KiwiSaver is an awesome way to pay yourself first without even realizing it, because it doesn't even come into your bank account. You never even know about it. And that was my mindset when I started working, about having 8% and working towards trying to own a home. Now, no matter what percentage you're contributing, you're still getting the government contribution and tax break from that. I've heard you say on your latter episodes that you're not that interested at the moment in going towards home ownership. You're interested in portfolio and shares. So how have you stacked your contribution at the moment? Um, is that 8% a good way to pay yourself first for your future home and not worry about it and work with what you've got? Or are you working with having all the benefits of KiwiSaver, but also the cash flow of maximising your in pocket? Because I've used my home start, so I've done that, and now I'm like, right, I want to grow. I want to get into business. I want to, obviously I've started investing and you work with that. So I need more cash flow. So I'm keeping it at 3%. What are you doing, and how are you thinking about it?
yeah, good question actually. I so my KiwiSaver contribution is at 10%. So
10,
mine's
nice.
at the max it can possibly be. And I think I have definitely said that my focus isn't on building a deposit, it's on building my portfolio. But I also am aware that that portfolio, both inclusive of KiwiSaver and my own independent investments, could be used for a deposit. So for me at this point, I still haven't actually solidified exactly what I'm going to be using my KiwiSaver for, whether it's first home or retirement.
Mm.
But what I do know is that while I have the freedom um, at the age I'm at and in the stage I'm at to kind of be saving a lot, I just want to put as much as I can away. And so I contribute more than 10% to my investing portfolio independently of KiwiSaver. And I do that because I know, obviously, with your own independent investments, you have control over that yourself, in the sense that, well, not only can you choose what you invest in, but you can also take it out whenever you want as well. So knowing that I can take that out for something earlier than retirement, whether that's a first home or whatever it ends up being, I like to contribute more to that. So I guess how I overall think about it is I try to contribute in a really simple way. I try to contribute as much as I can to both,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and approach it like that, because I think I'm quite lucky in the sense that I have the freedom to be able to do that. My expenses are low, don't have any dependents. And so things like that, I'm grateful to be able to have the freedom to save as much as I can now, which is just kind of how I approach it.
That's it's pretty awesome to hear you talk about this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, holy shit, why wasn't I thinking about this stuff? It's crazy. Um,
Well, that's
one,
the
one,
thing, right? It tells you. So how are you supposed to know?
oh shit, yeah, yeah. I was listening to your podcast with the someone from Sorted, and you were talking about university expenses and good
Yeah.
old student loans. Through and in your first episode, she brought up the fact that the bank just gave you $1,000 overdraft, and I think while I was there, it even got extended out to $2,000. So, but the real mindfuck for anyone listening that and who's younger that thinks that overdrafts are a good idea is you hit the limit and then you carry on living on zero balance or negative 2,000 balance. And then
Mhm.
if you cut back to the 1,000, then you start living on the 1,000 balance. So if you don't ever go into the zero balance, into the overdraft, you just live on the zero balance, and then you're okay. And it's like, what a
What do you think?
yeah, what a dumb idea. And I think Luke's brought it up that the amount that you have to earn is actually more than the amount that you have to pay back because of tax and paying back your student loan and paying back your contributing to your Kiwisaver and stuff. So it's what you're setting up yourself for is pretty horrible. So course expenses if you don't need them or invest them, and also that weekly stuff. Um, you know, create some budgeting and financial literacy so that you pay all your bills, um, uh, do all your stuff, and then what's left over is what you get to enjoy for the week. I totally had that wrong in uni.
Oh, honestly, you're telling me like I had no like it still cracks me up because I genuinely thought I was financially literate in uni, but here I am spending all of my course related costs and what is it? Oh, course related costs and living costs on crap pretty much, like just drinking at the student bar or clothes or all of this stuff. And I remember saying to myself, I'm going to take out the living costs and put it in a high interest account, um, and then take it out, when I finish uni or whatever and start investing in it, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it was all lies. I didn't do any of it. And I think if you've got the discipline, then absolutely good on you, go for it. But I'm also of the opinion that is it worth just taking out any debt at all? Like, why not just keep yourself low debt and then come out of uni with a debt that you can easily pay off and then just start putting all of the money that's actually yours towards things. But there's still an argument for making your money work for you, um, while you can get it, I suppose. But yeah, no, definitely when it came to uni, I just was not smart whatsoever. But also, no regrets because you got to learn those lessons sometimes.
Oh gosh, yes, gosh, yes, and it's funny, still paying off my student loan. There's still about 30K to go. It's bloody horrible, but I just like look at that amount on my payslip each week and go, shit, it's going to be exciting saving and investing that amount like that.
Yeah,
Because I've been doing it for so long. It's like, right, I don't actually need that money. That money is for investing. Currently, it's investing in what I did in the past,
yeah.
and 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 that was an investment in my current salary. But into the future, it's about investing into business or those things I talked about before. Yeah, and it's funny you brought up like the term deposit stuff. I think I got a scholarship, or maybe it was some of the money that I earned. Working at the aluminium smelter in Invercargill one summer, I actually did put it into a Southland Building Society's term deposit, and I think I got through about 9 months of the 12 months before I had to withdraw it. And that was in my final year, but like I had good intentions and I did earn a little bit of interest on it, but yeah, no, I had to break the deal.
Definitely still good effort.
Yeah,
More
no,
than I did anyway.
yeah, I think being 25 at uni, I think I had to go to a wedding in Rarotonga, so yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah. No, definitely have to take it out. Life experiences.
yeah. I went to Rarotonga for one weekend. It was fantastic.
Oh, how good. Did you say that, you the money you're paying now was an investment into what you did in the past? Do you still use your degree now in what you do?
Yeah. So when I was 12, I decided that I was going to be an optometrist, and then
Mhm.
I went up to Auckland and didn't get in, and so I was given, the choice of like, what the heck do I do? And I was like, oh, maybe I could follow my brother and become an engineer, still in that mindset of, oh, I'm good at science, I'm good at, good at maths, so maybe I'll be an engineer. And I was like, no, I wanted to do this since I was 12. Um, and so then I changed unis down to Otago, did 2 years there, did a science degree, and then got in. And so then, became an optometrist. And so, that's what I've been doing for the last nearly 8 years. So, the degree has followed into the job, and it's been a dream. And you were talking about like whys, and again, my older brother dropping some knowledge bombs at the end of uni. Sort of said, watch these 2 videos, and one of them was about finding your purpose and writing down what your why was, and I came up with improving people's lives. And today, in fact, I found a values assessment that I'd done a couple of years ago, and that was about like helping people and all that sort of stuff. And so the job of optometry really fits in that why. So it's been, like I always say, I'm super lucky that I found something when I was 12 that was interesting and fulfilled me, and I still get to do it now. So you've spoken a lot about on your podcast that journey for purpose and why, and trying things and battling with it, and not necessarily finding it. Like, where's this whole circle of idea come in? And I guess that speaks to the other half of your podcast about personal development. Like, where's that landing with you, and what's that exploration been like?
Yeah, honestly, this has been the best part of having my podcast, I think. I had a really, like, for context, I struggled a lot with finding my air quotes passion.
Yeah.
It was a massive thing for me in my second to last year of high school, so that's year 11, and I was just really struggling with the fact that I felt everyone had their thing. Like, everyone was either really good at sport or really good at art or really good at music or really good at whatever, and I just never had my thing. Like, I was so average at everything and like really good at nothing, and it made me feel like crap all the time, because I just thought, well, if I don't have my thing, like, what the hell am I going to do after high school? Like, what's my passion? And because I was sort of, I think, already planting seeds about being interested in self-development, I kind of took that why and that purpose as like, I need a passion, like I need to be passionate about something. And I honestly carried that through all the way up until, I'd say, just before I left my corporate accounting job, where one of the guys I worked with there said to me, your passion doesn't have to be what you do for work. And I'd always like tied, needing to have my passion be like my number one focus in my work. Although I was reflecting on that the other day, because I often reflect on like so many things that people have said to me or that have happened to me. And I was thinking, that's true. It does not have to be whatsoever. But I think for me, I want it to be. Like, I want the work I do to be something I care about and to be something I'm passionate about. But that doesn't mean it has to be the thing. Like, it doesn't have to be the passion. It just has to be something I feel some kind of like connection to, or fulfillment from. It has to be something like that. And so that's when, I guess, like, that trying to find my passion thing was the start of me going on this self-development journey. And then I've always kind of just done little things that to try and figure out who I was. And then when I started the podcast, it really was drilled into me the importance of figuring out who you are. But I see that so much differently now. Like, before, figuring out who I was would have been so intimidating. Like, what does that mean? Finding yourself, and what kind of self-discovery weirdo journey do I have to go on to do that? But it's not even about that. It's more just about figuring out what you value, like what your values are and what you want out of life. And for me, it was about figuring out that I wanted to do a job that I cared about. I wanted to have certain people around me. I only wanted to interact with people who both inspired me, but were also really honest with me about what I wanted to do, and like kind of just figured out things like that. And then that's, like I said, being solidified through the podcast. And every person I talk to on the podcast has like another little nugget of information that I take and I apply to my own life. And that I don't always agree with my podcast guests, like I always say that I like to have a wide perspective or a wide group of perspectives coming onto the podcast, and that doesn't mean I'll always agree with them. And I think that's a really good thing, because something else I've always pushed is trying to understand the perspectives of other people, whether or not you agree with them. It's about shaping your own view. And if you're constantly hearing the same thing, and the same thing is being reinforced in your head, you're going to have no diversity to the way you think and to the empathy you have for other people and all of those sorts of things. And so for me, it's so important to constantly surround myself with different kinds of people, different kinds of opinions, different kinds of worldly experiences, different kinds of upbringings, everything, so that I can shape my own view on the world and kind of decide what in my head is right to me, and how I see things, because that's going to shape my values, that's going to shape who I am. And therefore every decision I make going forward about anything in my life, whether it's what I do for work or who I decide to keep around me as friends or where I decide to live, those decisions are going to be so much easier, because I already know so much about who I am and what I want out of life, that I have such a strong gut feeling now about what the aligned answer is and what the right thing to do is, because I know myself so much better. And so for me, this whole self-development side of the podcast has really been about finding out who I am, so that every other decision I make going forward is so much easier. Because I guess an example of that, when I'm talking about it, something I'm thinking about is doing accounting. So I did my whole degree in accounting, and I'm not really into accounting, but I got a scholarship at the end of high school to do accounting, and it just kind of seemed like an amazing opportunity. And I was told by all of these people around me, like, you'd be stupid to not take this opportunity. Like, you've been given this amazing opportunity that other kids would love, or other people would just love to have. So you need to take it. And I did, but it just wasn't right for me. And I think there's so much power in being able to say no, regardless of how amazing the opportunity is. And also, just because something is a good opportunity in the eyes of society doesn't mean it's a good opportunity for you as an individual. And I don't think I understood what that meant. And so now, after I left that accounting job, I had offers to go and work with people that I would have loved to have previously, and would have been such amazing opportunities. And I turned them down because I just knew in my heart and in my gut it wasn't the right thing. And then the job I actually ended up taking, and the job I'm working in now, is amazing. I absolutely love it. The people I work with are amazing and just so much more aligned. And that decision was way easier because I'd kind of already set that up for myself and learning about myself. So it's just things like that have transformed for me through having the podcast and through learning more about who I am as an individual.
Nice. So do you think initially it was about branding? Like, you thought they had to have this, this is what I'm delivering.
Yeah, like, I think it was, I don't know. I think I just saw things so much more black and white. Like, I was either this person or that person, or did this or did that. And now I don't think as much like that, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting, because you want to get sort of niche down, but at the same time you want to reach a lot of people, and hopefully, again, like you were saying, open your own mind, but open the minds of those people that you influence as well. Being able to take on all those raft of opinions and perspectives, and so yeah, it's funny when you start off in a podcast and you try, stick to a brand, and then you kind of go, well, actually, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'd love my audience to learn and grow as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why I started the podcast as well, is because I knew that I couldn't be the only one. And I love people. Like, I love learning from people. I love talking to people. I just love people in general. So a massive part of what would make this podcast really fulfilling to me was having that kind of community aspect, which I don't even know if the audience feels like they're in, but I feel like I'm constantly surrounded by all of these amazing people all the time, and it's the most fulfilling thing ever.
Yeah, that's something I believe wholeheartedly, and I've written a blog about it. When was that, about 2016, I went on the Rotary Youth Leadership Award here in the Waikato, and I got talking with a friend. No, she became a friend. I met her at Ryla, Gemma, and she's been on the podcast a couple of times. And I had finished university, had my great group of mates who I flattered with, and we're still really good mates. We're going to hang out this weekend. It's going to be awesome. But then moved to Christchurch and really struggled with the cliquey society that Christchurch can be. And then moved to the Waikato, and then I definitely didn't know anyone. I had no connections to the area. I initially thought my brother was going to be living there, but then him and his partner at the time moved back to Christchurch. So it was me and my girlfriend at the time left in the Waikato, and all I really knew was, I'll go play rugby. But by that stage, I think I was 26 or so, and all those people were university age, and I was like, oh shit, I need to find some mates. And so so then I was talking with Gemma. I was like, we need to come up with a concept that's similar to young professionals, but it's about like growth and community work and coming together and solving problems. And from there flourished this concept that's still running in the Waikato called Seed. And I wrote a blog about that journey, and it was really about sharing your pain, because you're not alone. You really, if you've got something that's troubling you, if you can share it, you'll find so many people that relate. And that's the reason why I think part of the reason why your podcast is so good, because so many people work and get to the end of the pay scheme and go, shit, what have I achieved? Nothing. I'm still on zero and I've still got these debts. But having some tools, and that's one of the things around anxiety, is being able to make a decision, being able to have a plan, means that you push your anxiety to the side and you carry on. So how much resonance have you found from talking about something as simple as Kiwisaver, something as simple as your financial literacy each week, and then being able to have the power to then follow that budget and then implement investments and then see things grow? Like, what's the resonance been like?
Yeah. So I suppose, do you mean like what it's been like to learn about those things and then the journey to actually going and implementing them?
Yeah, and then your audience shouting back at you, being like, "Thank you," and "This is what I've done."
Yeah, that has been pretty crazy because you still don't really, I think, believe how much you impact people or how much you can. Like I on the daily receive messages from people, like long messages, with people talking about what their next career move is going to be, and they want to ask me for my advice on what I think they should do. And it's so funny because they obviously know from listening to my podcast the kind of person I am, and probably have a good idea of what I'd say to them, and that's why they're reaching out to me, because they want reassurance. And so to have people who not only resonate with the content you put up, but resonate with the person you are, that's a massive compliment. And I think it also shows the kind of trust you can develop without even talking to people. And for me, like, I try to build a really high level of trust with my audience, because I am them. Like, I'm getting the content for people just like me. And that's just the average person who is afraid and is a little bit more hesitant to be vulnerable with conversations around money or personal development. And I want them to know that it can just be chill and relaxed, and it doesn't have to be serious. And yeah, it can be easy. So having people reach out and tell me what they've been able to do as a result of my podcast is so insane. And being able to be on that same journey myself is pretty cool. I think sometimes I crack up because people ask me things that I have no idea about, and I'm always like, I can't believe you're coming to me for this. But it definitely shows just how much people trust you, and that's the greatest part about sharing conversations and opening up, um, yourself, being vulnerable yourself, but also opening up, I guess, just making public conversations you have, because normally conversations that we might have, like this, we would easily have just the two of us, but being able to share that with other people is so powerful, because they can be a part of that learning without necessarily being there. And that's why I think collaboration is so key to the success of anyone. and why it's so exciting to be able to have so many platforms like this now where we can do this kind of thing, because you can jump in on a conversation with Barack Obama, with Simon Sinek, with all these like amazing people, and you don't have to know them personally. You don't even have to pay for it, and you can take so much from it. So yeah, that kind of thing is insane, and I don't think I'll ever. It's hard because even when they're saying it to you, it's a massive compliment, but you're like, wow, is that really? Is that like true? Like you almost don't even believe it, and I think that comes from kind of your own personal self doubt thing as well. But it's always a huge compliment, and I appreciate when anyone takes the time to reach out to me.
Yeah, Jimmy Hunt had a good podcast on imposter syndrome, and the good thing to know is that when you feel like that, it's because you're being genuine and you're chasing a worthy goal. But if you're just being an asshole, then you know you're being an asshole. And so, like, imposter syndrome is a good thing, and it's always good to hear even Joe Rogan say, "Yeah, no, still got it. I still think, what the hell am I doing? Why am I the person here?" And like you're like, "Whoa, that's buzzy as."
It's always good hearing people like that who you think would never feel that way admit that they feel that way, because then it just humanizes them a little bit more, and then you definitely feel a bit better about yourself and know that you're not alone, which is such a key thing as well in anything, whether it's mental health, financial literacy, personal development, like sport, academics, like whatever it is, you just want to feel like you're not alone in how you're feeling.
Mm. Well, you said, at high school you're sort of struggling along with finding an identity. What was the first sort of spark to sort of look at personal development and sort of creating a dream for yourself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I just had some really amazing teachers, honestly. Like I had two teachers, both business studies teachers, who I really looked up to and I really admired. And I always kind of related business to self development in a way, because it seems like some of the themes tie over in terms of growth of a business and growth personally, and the kind of elements that come into those sort of things. And I was always into business, and looked at then big CEOs, and then CEOs would talk about what they do in their daily routine, and then
Mm.
jump into that. And that's how I think it kind of evolved. And then having those teachers who really pushed me to look into those resources inspired me for sure. And so I definitely have them to thank for it. I mean, one of them was the one that gave me my copy of Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is the copy I still have now. And he wrote inside the cover, remember me when you make your first million. And I always remember that because I just love that so much. And I think having teachers like that seriously can shape your life. So very grateful to them for kind of putting me on that journey initially.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible how like one small moment or act like will have such a lifelong influence. It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's like it's the same for the podcast. Like there's been so many things that guests have said on my podcast that have stuck with me for ages. And I'm sure that's the same for so many people who listen to not only mine, but podcasts anywhere. There could always be one sentence or one phrase that just changes their perspective and how they think about things.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you were deputy head girl, like
I was.
yeah. I was deputy head boy as well. So a little bit of resonating there. Like you said that you didn't really feel like you had a place in the school. What do you think nailed it to get that role? Like, how did your system work? We at our school it was just basically like one roll call. Who do you think is going to be? And I texted a couple of mates, being like, "Oh yeah, I'm keen." And then names got read out. Yeah, Ryan, you're deputy head boy. Like, what was the system at Avondale College?
It's so funny. Yeah. At Avondale. So it was the first round of um, so it was prefects were the first round picked, and that was done through student vote and teacher vote, with student vote having I think the majority weighting, and that was the only like weighting we were going to have, because students didn't get much of a say when it came to the deputy heads
Uh-huh.
um, or the head boy or head girl, but the prefects did. So the general student body voted for the prefects, and so I just got in through that, so that was great. And then when it came around to the deputy and the head picking, we all went on a camp. So all the prefects went on a camp together, which was kind of this like cool, just team bonding thing. And then we all had to put in our votes for who we thought would be a good head boy and a head girl, and then the kind of deputies would be picked from that. Like I guess the ones that weren't quite the head boy or head girl would then get picked from that. So we did that, and then the prefect vote came in, and I was one of the people that was voted to, that people had voted to be head girl. So that's a massive compliment that, you know, your peers are kind of thinking you'd be capable of that. So that was great. But then all of us had to, sort of 6 of us picked, I think. No, must have been 8, because then there were 3 deputy heads and then a head boy and a head girl. And we had to have an interview with the principal. And this is actually kind of a funny story. And then the principal would ultimately choose who would be head boy and head girl. And I remember I had my interview, and one of the questions was, what's your plan for the rest of the year? Like, what are you going to try and achieve in your last year at high school? And obviously, you know, you wanted to give this kind of answer that was reflective of your intentions, of your ability to be an amazing school representative. And I literally sat there and I said to him, honestly, I have no idea what I'm going to do this year. I was like, I have no idea. I was like, I'm approaching this year like a blank sheet of paper, and I'm just gonna, I actually remember saying this, I'm actually just gonna come up with, you know, what feels right for me, and I'm gonna try and make the most of this year in whatever way I can, but that's gonna be on my terms and the way that I want to do it. And yeah, just try and make this a great last year of school, but no real intentions, and etc etc. And I remember him kind of pausing for a second and was like, okay, cool, you know. And that was the end of the interview. I think I had the shortest interview of everyone, so kind of indicative there of, you know, probably not gonna get the head girl gig. And the one who actually ended up being head girl went straight after me, so I think anyone would have been made to look amazing after that kind of thing. But something he had said to me in that interview was, I think he asked me, why do you think that you should be head girl? Because you've got the biggest student vote by far to have this role. So by student vote, essentially what he was saying was, by student vote, you know, you would have won, but it's not student vote. So now you've got to tell me why. And so obviously we fucked it up, but I didn't want it.
What a power balance. That's rough.
Yeah. I know. And I honestly in my heart didn't want that. Like I didn't want that responsibility, because I wasn't lying to him. I really wanted to just approach the year as a blank sheet of paper and kind of still enjoy that time. And yeah, so then that's how it happened. I ended up being deputy head girl, and I put, like, another side story to this, I ended up putting together all these proposals for us to have a year 13 day, because we didn't have anything for year 13.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I was like, and then how do you feel about when you did fill in the piece of paper that it got rejected?
Yeah, so I did 2 proposals, one for a year 13 day, and then the second one to have hoodies, because Leavers hoodies, because we always had Leavers t-shirts, and we weren't allowed to have hoodies, which I just thought was so unfair, because hoodies are cool, obviously. So I made this proposal and sat in front of the principal and literally presented it to him, all these Leavers hoodies, and he said to me, no, the reason that we're not allowing hoodies is because if you guys go and rob houses, if someone robs a house hoodie,
and they leave us hoodie.
Yeah, then it's obviously going to be a bad look at the school, on the school, and we can't take that risk. And I was like, okay, the fact you're even assuming that someone in our year, or someone related to someone in our year, would wear a Leavers hoodie while they're robbing a house is so wrong on so many levels. But I didn't even have like the intellect at that point to kind of realize how ridiculous that was. But yeah, and that's why he said, no, we're not approving this. But then the next year,
they got the hoodies. You
and
sowed the seed.
Fucking kidding me. I was like, I planted that fucking seed for them, and no one thanked me.
No.
But yeah, and the year 13 day, I literally planned out, it was going to be like a festival type vibe. And I'd already Googled contractors for, you know, snow cone machines and mini donuts, and put together all the prices. I can't believe I did this. Put together all the prices on this proposal. Again, just like, no. straight up. And I think I cried about it because it was so disappointing. And I also, another rejection I got while in my deputy head role was I had to do a speech in front of the school. And I wrote this speech out that was about, like, you know, at the end of the day, school is not the be all and end all. Like, you can still do so many outside of school and achieve all of these things. And the speech got rejected, and I had to rewrite it alongside my dean, who was a legend, but the one of the deputy principals wasn't a legend, and she just like keep rejecting my speech. And I remember crying about it because I was like, it's so unfair that I want to say this thing that I think is so true and so right, and they just won't let me. I just thought it was so unfair, and I had a lot of problems with authority that year, obviously, but just it's funny looking back now.
The authority. Yeah, no, that's why you've started a podcast, because you can say what you want. Now,
Exactly.
this question might, this question might be an absolute flop. You might not even know who Homebrew is, but has Tom Scott ever talked about it at Avondale College, or is he one of the people that they kind of don't really talk about, even though he's super famous?
Yeah. Not while I was there.
No.
Who else? We did have Nadia Lim. You know, she
Oh,
won
yeah.
the master. Yeah, she was. She used to go to Avondale College, and she came in to talk to us once. I remember.
Oh, nice. That's another James Hargest Avondale College connection. Our head boy in my brother's year is Nadia Lim's husband. So, yeah. Synergy. No, fantastic. Where do you have a vision now? Like, have you established a vision 107 episodes in?
Yeah, I know. It's so funny. I kind of think, like, have I? Because you know how a lot of podcasts have seasons, and they
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Apple Podcast did that to my podcast. So,
Oh no.
yeah. So luckily, the podcast that finishes the end of season 1 just keeps getting hits.
Yeah, no, like a lot of people have seasons and then they'll have a focus, but I've never had seasons. I've always just like done what I wanted to do. And people often ask me now, how do you come up with the topics for your podcast? And I'm like, I just think about what I want to know, and then that's how I come up with the podcast topic, which is so selfish. But I'm also the target market, so I kind of think, well, you know, it works. But now the vision, I think, is just to try and grow the impact of the podcast. Like, how can I do that? How can I bring what the genesis of the One Up project is all about into its own business, essentially, into its own thing? Like, what does that look like? How can I actually help people to have the freedom to make decisions with their life? What does that look like? And I think I'm thinking at this point beyond the podcast, you know, how do I do that? And I've got a few ideas, a few thoughts, but nothing set in stone, nothing, you know, really solidified at this point. But I definitely always try to continue what I'm doing with the same values and the same reason that I started. And like going back to what I said earlier, having a strong why is so important for whatever you do, especially with this podcast. Like the reason I do it is the thing that constantly brings me back to staying consistent and to loving it at every moment, and that is to give people the freedom to make decisions with their life that they wouldn't otherwise have without this level of financial literacy or knowing themselves this much through personal development. And that's kind of the rule I follow, is anything within that realm, anything that we should have been taught but weren't, is what I like to cover. And as long as I stick to that with everything I do, then I'm really happy.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the massive topics you brought up there is knowing yourself and financial literacy. And that's one of the big topics in Rich Dad Poor Dad, is knowing yourself and what are you doing. And financial literacy is, why am I doing this? Is this true to who I am? Like,
yeah,
how, like, there's so many episodes that you've done that's been reinforced. Like, did you think you knew that already, or like how much have you grown on that topic?
I think subconsciously there were always parts of me that knew that was the most important thing, but I couldn't articulate it. Like I couldn't
Mm.
tell you exactly what I meant by that. Whereas now, having talked to so many people and having reflected on this so much myself, and having to do like a lot of self-reflection in my own podcast episodes, that's helped me to now be able to articulate that and kind of actually nail down what exactly I was thinking about all those years before or with all that time. So yeah, I think in many ways subconsciously there was always that there, but now I can actually act on it a lot more intentionally.
Yeah. So you mentioned the new job. I haven't got to that episode. What's the new job?
Yeah, I haven't even spoken about it at all actually.
Yeah.
Uh, Not like directly anyway. So I work in marketing and I work for a company that it's like a tech company, like a software company that develops apps for health and fitness influencers. So I'm like still I'm in that kind of social media world, and we're working towards changing people's lives, impacting people's lives with their health and fitness, and making health and fitness a lot more accessible to people globally. We're doing that every day. So being able to work for a company with that purpose at its core is really fulfilling as well.
I heard a snippet on one of the episodes said that you worked at a gym during uni. Like, what
Yeah,
was the vibe of that?
yeah. I worked at Les Mills on the reception desk at uni, that was the best job ever. That was
Which
at
one?
New Lynn, which is like
Yeah.
West Auckland. And yeah, it was the best job ever, honestly. If you need a good uni job, then go and work on reception desk at Les Mills.
Does it come with a membership?
It does. It comes with a free membership, so get amongst it. And that's actually just another really good job to meet people because you're constantly talking to people. And that's the thing I think I loved about it the most was that your job is just talking to people, pretty much, aside from the admin work. Like your job is talking to people, and obviously having a podcast. I love doing that. So
Mm. Yeah, I've got a couple of mates, mostly from Dunedin that worked at Les Mills down there, and like one of them's on the bloody spin advertising. It's always good when you
oh yeah,
walk past the spin advertising and you send her a photo. She hates it, but yeah, but yeah, and others that have gone on to be instructors and be on the videos and all that sort of stuff. Like, yeah, if you're wanting to keep healthy and keep fit, nothing like being motivated by your job is that other part of your life, and also, yeah, you don't have to fork out for the membership. There's some financial literacy right there, isn't it?
totally, totally. And to be honest, even where I work now, like yeah, we're a tech company, but half of the people who work there are PTs, and it's honestly been a saving grace in this lockdown because someone's always taking a boxing class or has a challenge on the go or whatever it is, and people are really motivated by health and fitness. So being surrounded by that is really helpful during a lockdown because the highlight of my day is getting out for a walk and doing some kind of exercise or something, and that's constantly reinforced by the people you're around, which is obviously so important for your mental health.
And so it's all been working from home with the lockdown, or yeah, shit.
Yep, we'll be working from home. I think day 77 now, something. To be honest, it's like it's fine, but
It's fine. Yeah, that's another TikTok person I follow. This dairy farmer, and that's one of the things he's always impersonating his wife, and like, oh, okay then, fine then,
uh,
it's fine.
oh, there's just so many classic stereotypes that come with this lockdown. I'm like the kind of person you end up turning into. It's so funny.
Righto. So speaking of that walk, I better let you go get it while there's still some daylight. You're a little bit north of me. We've still got some daylight here, but yeah, Auckland, I know it gets dark a little earlier, mate.
Yeah, it's crappy weather as well, which is the worst part of it. But
Yeah, we've
still got
had
to get out there, rain, hail, or shine.
that's the one. We've had hurricanes here the last couple of days. And I keep coming home to no, not actually, but keep coming home to my recycling bin bowled down the driveway. I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, yeah.
Worst.
Yeah. So, Sarah, where do people find you? The Grams, TikTok, podcast. What do they look for?
Yeah, just look for at the One Up Project everywhere on everything, and you'll find us. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me, Ryan. It's so good chatting to you, and I appreciate having all of your support as well. It means so much to me, as you would know from hearing me go on about it. So thank you.
No, you're a legend, Sarah. Being a self development, person, what's the thing that you've found keeps you flowing along and means that your life goes quite well and it always shows up when things are going well? What's that for you?
Ooh, that's a big question. I think for me, it's, do I really want to say it's knowing yourself again? But it's being able to, I think, um, give yourself a break and know when you need certain things, which essentially, in basic terms, means balance, but being able to prioritize different parts of who you are when you need to. For example, is what you need today some rest is what you need today, some interaction with people is what you need today, to put your head down is what you need today, to have a sleep, like whatever it is, knowing yourself, not feeling guilty for treating whichever person that is, and then just getting on with it. And I think like if you can do that, you'll find that you're so much more resilient, and your growth and your progress is so much more sustainable. But there's so many little things that come along with that. So being able to master it, I think, is the best way to achieve sustainable personal growth.
Beautiful. Love it. Right, mate, get on your walk. Enjoy whatever bloody weather it is at the moment. Auckland could be anything. 4 seasons in one day, isn't it?
Oh, it always is. Yeah, no, appreciate it. Thank you so much, and we'll chat soon.
Awesome. I'll press stop.
Cool. Thanks so much.